This week's episode of The Real Rush may contain an F-bomb or 2 or 3 or maybe 57. So if that kind of thing ain't your bag, you should probably fucking tune away right now. But if you don't mind any of it, let's go ahead and start the rush. What's happening, y'all? It's your boy J-Dub here with The Real Rush episode 2 here on YouTube. Now, as I film this, it's late as hell, early as hell, however you want to look at it. It's about 2:15 in the morning on Saturday, October 6th, 2K18 as I film this. So I'm a little wired, so please forgive me if when I do start to go into my reviews, if I get a little jumbled the fuck up here. I am filming this early, so that way later on today I can edit this while I am watching the pay-per-view WWE Super Showdown that will be streaming live from Australia in a couple hours, but I'm not going to be watching that shit live because that joint comes on at 5 o'clock in the morning. I plan on being, so I will be on demanding that joint and editing this, and then by the time all that's said and done, then you'll be seeing this, and then I'll be playing my new WWE 2K19 Deluxe Edition video games. That being said, let's go ahead and get on down to brass tacks. Now, I've already seen all 4 new releases of this weekend. I know last week I mentioned that there were only 3 coming out, but it turns out that the Angelica added something to their schedule, so we got 4 to get to tonight. We're going to kick things off with the movie adaptation of the Marvel comic Venom. What's it all about? I'm going to tell you. Tom Hardy plays Eddie Brock, who is an investigative journalist who stumbles onto some not so good doings over at the Life Foundation, which is headed up by Carlton Drake, played by Riz Ahmed. That boy Riz is on a hot streak as of late. Now, the Life Foundation have come into possession of some alien symbiotes, one of which is named the aforementioned Venom. Now, Venom finds his way into Eddie's body, and them two must work together to stop Carlton and the Life Foundation from doing some evil shit, man. This also stars Michelle Williams, the beautiful Michelle Williams. Now this movie, holy fuck, blew my mind. Honestly, one of the better superhero, anti-hero comic book movies that I've seen. Now this movie, on the contrary, is not getting the greatest reviews from the critics. Last I checked, it had something like a 33 Metascore. It had the red block. Honestly, I don't know what movie y'all were watching, because I would have hit this joint with at least like an 80, 85. Like the action was on point, the humor was on point, and it kept me on the edge of my seat the entire time. I walked away with it not disappointed. Maybe it helped that it wasn't getting great reviews before, and I knew this walking into it, because by the time I walked out of it, I wanted more. I want to see this movie again. I saw it in IMAX 3D. I wouldn't mind seeing it in IMAX goddamn 8D. I wouldn't mind paying like $200 maybe to see this movie over and over and over again. That's how much I enjoyed this movie. You can't always believe the critics, y'all. I mean, now, they did say that the plot was a little bit inconsistent, and I think I can see where that comes into play. There were 40 minutes cut from this movie. This movie should have actually been about 2.5 hours. So the same thing with Batman vs. Superman, which, once again, I was a huge fan of, but the general public and the critics did not like that as well. But once that was released on Blu-ray, it added 30 minutes into it, which helped, fill in some of the gaps that people were complaining about. I think that the same thing's going to happen with this movie. If you don't already enjoy it, I think that this should be deserving of an extended cut Blu-ray when it is released at that time. But for the time being, go see Venom and have yourself an absolute ball. Disconnect your brain for a little bit. You got to remember that it's a comic book adaptation. So, I mean, the sky's the limit when you're talking about fictional characters, man. As long as it sticks to the somewhat basics of the comic book itself, the movie can pretty much do whatever it wants. This is adjunct to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so it's not exactly part of the MCU. There is talk that it might be incorporated somewhat with Spider-Man Homecoming down the line. But this looks like it's going to set up its own type of Sony Marvel universe. So that being said, it is a Marvel movie. Is there some cameos in it? Maybe. Maybe not. But it is a Marvel movie, so that means that you do need to stay through the entire credits and enjoy yourself. A little bit of trivia about Venom before we move on to the next flick. Tom Hardy provided the voice of Venom, and he provided it in what he described as, before it was modulated to sound more venomous, if you will. He provided it and did it as what he described as a lounge lizard James Brown. So I'm kind of picturing the line where he says, you'll be this armless, legless thing rolling down the street like a turd in the wind. Like this lounge lizard James Brown. Yet I digress. So that's a little bit of fun trivia for y'all. Next movie up on our docket. A very anticipated movie not only for this month, but for this year. This is the fourth incarnation of A Star is Born, which stars and is directed by Bradley Cooper, who stars as Jackson Maine, who is a very famous country music singer, but also is battling his own personal demons, such as alcoholism and substance abuse, and maybe the limelight is getting to him a little bit too much, and he comes across a waitress by day but lounge singer by night, played by Lady Gaga, played brilliantly by Lady Gaga. Not only does he discover her and her talented voice, but he takes her on the road with him. They become entertainment partners, and as her star starts to rise and shine, his starts to dim a little bit. And that starts to play havoc on not only their business partnership, but on their relationship as well. Now this movie is beautifully moving. Absolutely, I can't stress the part moving enough. The soundtrack is brilliant. The songs are sung by not only Lady Gaga, but Bradley Cooper as well, and they sound amazing. You got to bring plenty of Kleenex to this one, y'all. Not only will it make you laugh, but there are some heavy moments in it that will make you cry. So much to the point that after the movie was all said and done, I saw the late showing. So after it was all said and done, I had the movie theater to myself. I had to take a couple minutes to collect myself before I could leave the theater and get on the road, come back home. Even on my way back home, it lingered with me. It lingered with me. Now, if a movie lingers with you to this effect, that means that Bradley Cooper, you just did an outstanding job with this flick. That being said, this is one to absolutely not be missed. You could go see it by yourself. You can make it a date movie. No matter what, you will enjoy this movie. Now, I'm not saying this on the same tip of Venom where it's like, well, JW told me that I would enjoy Venom and I didn't. No. This is not a movie where it's getting any type of negative press or anything. This is getting praise from the critics and the audiences that are going to see this alike. I am one of them. I hope this stays in limelight for some awards attention, especially for the soundtrack. The soundtrack itself, that's going to get nominated. I'm putting that out there right now. That is going to be an Oscar, not just an awards, generally speaking, but an Oscar-nominated soundtrack. One or two of the songs should be nominated as well. So yes, A Star is Born. Do not miss that. Boom. I don't know if I can say the iconic line, but Yeah. Moving right along, let's go to tonight's or earlier tonight's Friday night Angelica releases. First one being a new National Geographic documentary named Free Solo. This follows a man named Alex Honnold, who embarked on a quest. Alex Honnold is a solo free mountain climber. It follows him on the quest to be the first man to ever climb El Capitan out in Yosemite in California, or as I used to pronounce it as a child, Yosemite, to climb this structure, this natural structure, be the first man to ever do it without a rope. That being said, it's breathtaking, it's awe-inspiring, and if you have any type of fear of heights, I don't necessarily have a fear of heights, I just have a problem of falling from high places. It's going to make your palms sweat. I walked at the point where it finally does get to the point where he's attempting this free climb, edge of the seat all the way. So much so that, not giving away any spoilers or anything here, but this movie got almost a standing ovation, but an ovation nonetheless from the Angelica audience. So this is a documentary not to be missed. 2K18 seems to be the year for documentaries. So far we've had RBG, we've had Three Identical Strangers, we've had the Mr. Rogers documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor, which is my personal pick for best documentary of the year so far. But let's not downplay on the greatness of that which is Free Solo. If you find this in your area, definitely go see this movie, because this is a story that I was not aware of before I saw the movie. I'm not sure if the general public's aware, but yeah, go see this and follow this man's story. You will not be disappointed by Free Solo. And last but most certainly not least, we have possibly Robert Redford's swan song, The Old Man and the Gun. Before we get into what the movie's about, this movie is directed by David Lowery, who did direct last year's A Ghost Story, which I did put on the Real Rush's top 10 best movies of 2K17. So if you haven't peeped that one yet, that one is one also not to be missed. Yet I digressed. The Old Man and the Gun. It stars Robert Redford. He plays Forrest Tucker, this movie is based on the true story of Forrest Tucker, who was a bank robber in the 70s and broke out of San Quentin in the late 70s at the age of 70. Now, of course, this movie is based on a true story, so it's going to have, some things added for dramatization, I'm sure. It does say in the trailer that it's almost a true story. In the movie, Robert Redford meets and falls in love with Sissy Spacek, while also not only keeping what he does hidden from her, but also being hunted by Detective John Hunt, played by Casey Affleck. This movie also stars Danny Glover, Tika Sumpter, Tom Waits, Keith Carradine, and it's a very charming, romantic, and lighthearted movie. This movie has some great dialogue in it, some laugh out loud moments. Tom Waits actually delivers some of the most scene-stealing dialogue in the movie. I absolutely love the music, not only the soundtrack, but the score itself. And I absolutely loved how David Lowery filmed this in such a way that, since it takes place in 1981, that it keeps in line with the film graininess of that era. It looks amazing on the silver screen. So that being said, this is one to be seen in the theater. I know I say that a lot, but this is one to definitely be seen in the theater. I'm not sure that the grainy aesthetic is going to translate well to Blu-ray or DVD or 4K releases. So all four of these movies that I've just gone over here are ones to be seen. Now, that being said, there has to be a winner, right? Well, this week, for the Real Rush pick of the week, I'm sorry. I got to go with the tie, y'all. I'm going with the tie. Two-way tie. This week's, Little Wired. This week's Real Rush picks of the week are A Star is Born, and I'm going to go with the bold statement, Venom. That's right. The movie that is in the red on the Metascore is one of my picks of the week. All four movies, you don't want to miss them, but hands down, the best two, in my opinion, A Star is Born and Venom. So, put that in your pipes and smoke it, whoever gave it the 33 Metascore, or everybody saying, oh, that's to have some fun, y'all. I mean, disconnect your brain for a little bit. So, that, ladies and gentlemen, goes over this week's films. Now, a little bit of a public service announcement before we bring things to a close here this morning. When you're at the movies, it's so very important to keep your mouths shut the shits up. They have announcements before every movie. You cut off your cell phone, you don't text and shit, and you don't talk during the movie, but nobody seems to follow the fucking rules. I had these two jabronis sitting behind me in A Star is Born 2 nights ago and about half an hour into the movie, I had to turn around and give them the J-Dub look of impending doom because they kept interrupting my concentration on the film itself. Now, 95% of the time, the J-Dub look of impending doom gets the job done. It worked that evening. The other 5% of the time, things have to get a little verbal. And if I have to exceed that 5%, I will have no problem pulling a Shinsuke Nakamura on your ass all over the theater. So shut them shits up. Now that goes for after the movie too. When you're walking out of the theater, you can talk about the movie, how much you loved it and stuff, about some general things in the movie, but if you're going to talk about the ending of the movie, or if you're going to talk about anything that could potentially spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, shut the fuck up right there. I was walking into A Star is Born the other night, and as I was walking into it, 3 clown shoes were walking out of the old man and the gun. Now, I gave them the benefit of the doubt. I tried to block it out, thinking to myself, maybe they're talking about a different movie. No, they were talking about the old man and the fucking gun. Now, luckily, it didn't quite spoil anything, but it did pertain to some major plot points in the movie itself. So, that being said, during the movie, shut the fuck up. And after the movie, if it's anything about important plot points or anything, Neo, Matrix, Mr. Anderson, how can you say anything if you aren't allowed to speak? I'm paraphrasing Agent Smith a little bit, but you get what I'm saying. Don't make me don't. I'm telling you. Don't the doom look. I would portray the doom look, but I'm not sure that YouTube can handle it. I'm not sure that the internet is zoned for the J-Dub look of impending doom. Yeah, that's the Real Rush public service announcement for this episode. Next week, we got a lot of new releases, and so we're going to have a lot of new ground to cover next week. Next week, please tune in. We'll be covering First Man, The Happy Prince, The Oath, Bad Times at the El Royale, which is my most anticipated pick for the month of October, Goosebumps 2, Haunted Halloween, and Tea with the Dames. So be sure to tune in to next week's episode. But for right now, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any questions, comments, or anything at all, please don't forget to... Please feel free to post anything, how I might be able to improve on my videos, on my reviews. Thank you so much for tuning in to The Real Rush. Please follow me on Instagram on my quest for my check-ins as they occur, at JDubChampion, hashtag The Real Rush. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel, to The Real Rush here on YouTube. And that being said, Have fun, y'all. Love J-Dub. Enjoy yourself at the movies. Once again, thanks for tuning in. Peace.